Hola everyone, welcome to B is for Build. In today's episode, we're painting up that Raptor. We're gonna make it look pretty. We're going from this to this. See, it's definitely pretty, I think. I don't know, I haven't done it yet. We're gonna be repairing and painting up our fender. We're gonna be Raptor lining our front bumper, and then we're gonna be attaching everything so we're ready to drive on down the road. So, if you want to learn how to do a little bit of painting or a little bit of Raptor lining, or just watch me make mistakes and suffer, stay tuned. Today's episode is sponsored by War Robots. I really like War Robots because of the 6v6 real-time gameplay. It allows you to be strategic and play as a team and have a big advantage for good teamwork. You can download War Robots by using the link in the description below, and if you install right now, you're gonna get a welcome bonus pack, which includes a GI patent robot, plus a unique skin for it, and you're gonna get a full set of weapons and 100 gold and 400,000 silver. That's a huge starting bonus. And then you're gonna be ready to battle along the millions of other players on War Robots. There's over 50 types of different robots and weapons, so you can fit any playstyle. And of course, there's a great variety of skins and maps and game modes to choose from. There's also a big update coming soon with pilots. There's gonna be over 20 different characters with unique abilities to choose from. So let's play some more robots. Download the game using the link in the description below and get on today. Now back to work. All right, we are in what I would consider slight drizzle conditions here in Oregon. Luckily, the tree above me is keeping our workspace pretty dry, which is gonna be important for the Raptor liner. First things first, we gotta get our temporarily fit fender off this thing and start prepping it for paint. All right, we got our fender off. We're ready to pull our little fender insert out and prep it for paint. I have a feeling some of you guys are thinking like, but wait, why are you painting this thing if you're gonna do the facelift? And we are gonna do the facelift, but it's gonna take a little bit for the parts to get here, and then we're also gonna have to find a window of time to dedicate to the Raptor to do that whole facelift project. It'll probably take us like a week, so I wanna get it looking nice and looking decent right now. Also, I just think it's really valuable to take any opportunity that we can to practice with the new paint spraying system and the new paint booth. That way we're not just like using it for the first time on something really expensive and really awesome. So that's why we're doing this. Now we gotta prep. So I'm gonna go over painting this part just as if anybody else was in my situation but maybe didn't have all the spraying systems and all the stuff like that. I'm just gonna kind of show you guys how to do it as cheaply as possible. The first thing that we're gonna do is we need to scuff up the surface of this paint so it will be able to accept the primer. So you can use 400, 600 grit sandpaper to scuff up the surface of paint. We got a couple little damage marks in there right there, and we're gonna use some glazing putty to fill those in. Actually, before we scuff, that way when we scuff around it, it'll all smooth out. And obviously, you gotta pop your grills out. One thing I forgot to mention before we threw the glazing putty on it and that you just saw that we did was clean it. You want to really thoroughly clean your piece, because any contamination that you have, if you sand, you're going to literally be sanding that into the surface, and it's way harder to clean out later. So clean before sanding, and then clean after sanding, and then clean before painting. Anyway, so we cleaned it up, and then we got our glazing putty on. We're going to let this all dry up, and then we're going to scuff all the paint. Everywhere that you want to paint up needs to be scuffed first with a 400 or a 600 grit sandpaper. While Kyle is working on the sanding, I am going to figure out the paint code for our Ford truck, and this works on all Ford trucks. You open up the door right here, and you're going to see EXT, PNT, and then an SZ right there. That's our paint code. Now I'm going to Google that code along with Ford and figure out our full paint name as well, but for the most part you don't really have to do that. You can just head down to the paint supply store with your color code. So for any of you DIY guys out there trying to just source a little bit of paint to fix up, say, a fender or a bumper or something like that on your vehicle, there's two major paint suppliers for, just general public that I know of in the United States, which is Sherwin-Williams Automotives and PPG Paints. Those are the two big ones I know of, and I recommend PPG Paints. We have no affiliation with either of them. We used to spray Sherwin-Williams and we had a lot of issues. issues. We switched over to PPG and we've had a lot better results. So now I only use PPG. So I'm heading off to a shop now that sells PPG paints, and I'm gonna buy like the smallest amount that they sell because we're just doing this fender and it's not much. Just wrapped up at the paint shop, got our paint mixed up. This is only about half full, doesn't take a lot. And then I remembered I needed to buy a new respirator. So every time I open one of these bags of a disposable respirator, they last about 3 days. Or your charcoal activated filters, if you have a replaceable filter respirator, they last about 3 days. After that, it's no good, so you gotta get another one. This company, it's called Gearson. They make good, cheap respirators. And you gotta have one, because if not, you get brain damage. So it's important. 15 bucks, worth buying one. The shop, we just finished sanding up, and you can see that where all the gouges were and all the little scratch marks are all now filled in with that glazing putty. So when we go over this with primer, it'll all be completely smooth. Kyle is cleaning this one more time with wax and grease remover. I recommend pretty much after every step just clean it with wax and grease remover. I shouldn't have even been touching it with my bare hands like I was there, so we'll clean over that as well. So the next step for this piece is primer. So we're going to be spraying today with our Apollo sprayer systems. It's a turbine spraying system. It's called a Maximizer 3000. I'm going to put a link in the description. This is our first real spray up with this thing. It's a HVLP, super high volume. On the other side of that wall over there, the machine's over there, the turbines compress air and feed it to this specialty gun at a very, very high volume. And it's very cool because it takes all the guesswork out of air, consistent air pressure, and very clean, good quality air with no moisture in it or contaminants. But the other cool thing is that you have very little overspray because of the specialty guns and everything. You have very little overspray, very little waste. You save a lot of money on paint, so a lot of paint savings. But I did want to stay focused on the DIY side of things. So if you're balling on a budget and you're just, you got one fender like this and you're trying to fix it up as cheaply as you can, what do you do? The first and the biggest problem that I've ever ran into that you need to solve with a DIY at home super budget paint job is how to get a gun and air compressor combo that can keep up without breaking the bank. So my air compressor is about the smallest one you could use. It's in the shop over there. It's $500. You obviously don't want to do that for your first paint job. So how can you get around it? You can use a detail gun that uses a very, very small fluid tip. So you're spraying a smaller amount at a time, and then you can use a smaller air compressor because it doesn't need as much air to keep up with it. So this detail gun right here, I'm gonna put on the screen from Harbor Freight. I think it's like runs you about 15 bucks or something like that. You can pick up one of those, and then you know where to get your professional paint, and then you can rent an air compressor from any hardware store, rent a bigger one, and then that will be able to keep up with that gun for small things like fenders, bumpers. Can't do a hood. I wouldn't recommend huge surface areas, but smaller things it can do. I do see the irony in me giving out all these tips with how many paint jobs I've messed up, but not a lot of people have worked as hard as I have to figure out how to do a budget paint job. And so I think I'm qualified to give out these tips. So we've talked about where to get your air source from, what type of gun to use. We've talked about how to prep your material, and we've talked about where to get your paint. So the last piece of the puzzle is your environment. So in here, we're basically in a garage. It's nothing too special. We just have very clean walls and good lighting, which I recommend if you can do that, you should do that. The next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna sweep the floor, and then we're gonna wet the floor. So we're basically gonna be walking around in a puddle. What that does is any of the dust and contaminants that are in the air, once they hit the ground, you're not gonna be able to kick them back up or anything. They're gonna get trapped in that water. Get your air compressor and get it out of the place where you're painting, because as the air compressor runs, it has fans and stuff in there. It's gonna kick up air and crap everywhere. So get that out of the way, run an air line in for your paint gun. And then ventilation. You wanna have a good ventilated space. You're gonna have overspray kicking up off of your material. Overspray and paint fumes are flammable essentially, so you don't wanna have any open flames, you don't have any open sparks or anything like that. And you wanna have a well-ventilated area for your own health and safety, but also so you don't explode. It's a very important thing. And we're gonna figure out our ventilation any second now. All right, we now have a hole. Now we just gotta clean everything up off the ground, sweep and wet the floors. All right, so you can see our floors are all wetted down. So then we're gonna go ahead and clean this thing one more time with wax and grease remover, and then we're gonna hit it with a tack rag, and then we're gonna spray primer. Well, it's the next day and I messed up the paint job. So how I messed up the primer is not too technical. Basically, this was on a little bit of uneven ground, and I didn't have this thing like strongly enough secured on here. I mean, I guess it's still not strongly enough secured. So I'm gonna work on that, and either, see how this is off the ground right here? Either my foot or my hose caught this and did that. I didn't even really mean to do that right there. I honestly didn't think it was gonna fall. Anyways, so it fell. Pause, let me get it back up there. Okay, so clearly need to work on that. It fell, I tried to grab it by here, ran my hand, and then up here, ran my hand into wet paint. So then we just let it dry up overnight, sanded that stuff out, coming back with it with primer. So lesson to be learned here. We gotta secure this much better. So again, wetting the floors, cleaning the thing, spraying primer. Let's go. All right, we got a good primer on here now. It's nice and smooth, no mistakes, no drops, no nothing. I used the little tabs on here to make sure that we're holding it a lot better. It's not gonna fall off. So now that the primer is ready to go and done, basically, I got my blue flame base coat mixed up. We're gonna go ahead and spray it on. This is a two-stage paint, so it's gonna be base coat and then clear coat. All right, so we just finished our base coat, clear coat. That looks really good, but I want to let that dry up with no dust and no contaminants in that room. So we're gonna head outside now and start working on the Raptor liner for the bumper. So moving on to Raptor liner. We just got a couple spots on this bumper. This bumper's been hit before with Raptor liner. I can tell by seeing the surface. We got a couple spots like this piece right here, this piece right here, and a little bit of rust right there that we're gonna go ahead and spray up. And my hope is that we're gonna hit it, and once it dries and has about a week or two to cure up and everything looks good, that the color will change and match the rest of the bumper. If not, we're gonna have to go ahead and re-Raptor liner the whole bumper, which isn't the end of the world. So it's pretty simple, the DIY on this. Order your Raptor liner kit. I advise ordering the kit that comes with the gun. It's worth it, and the kit comes with this one is a 4-liter kit with the hardener. And to put that in perspective, that I'd used 1.5 of those to paint the entire FJ Cruiser. The biggest question that I get about Raptor liner is it going to hold up? Does it last a long time? And my answers are all yes, it works really good as long as you do the preparation, which is wax and grease. So say you're going to Raptor liner this piece right here. Hit it with wax and grease remover first, clean it up. Then it says that you want to sand it down, and it says right here in the instructions that they want you to use 80 to 180 grit sandpaper. So for something like this, I'd use 180 grit sandpaper. You're just going to sand up that clear coat and get it nice and scratched up so the Raptor liner has something to bite into. If you sand down to bare metal, you want to hit that bare metal with etching primer. I think that's the #1 mistake people make, is they don't use etching primer on bare metal, and then they spray Raptor liner over it, and then that metal rusts underneath somehow, and then the Raptor liner starts to peel up. And once you get to the point where your surface is prepared, you just fill a little bit of hardener into your bottle. Use the bottle screws onto the gun, you shake it up, and you spray onto a piece of cardboard first, and make sure you get the right type of texture that you want, and you're good to go. So with where we are now, we need to scuff. Oh, the other thing is you can kind of spray this on as much as you want. You can see the thickness here. They almost went to like 1/4 of an inch, maybe more than 1/4 of an inch of thickness. You can do that with Raptor liner. You don't want to cause any runs, so be careful to make sure that it tacks up before you start spraying more on, but you can spray this stuff on pretty darn thick, which I'm going to do here so I can blend it in with over here. So get the texture you want and adjust your air pressure on your gun to help you get that right texture you want by spraying on a piece of cardboard, and then spray away. So what we're going to do, sand up, prep up, clean up, and then we're going to lay out some cardboard to mask it off so we don't accidentally spray the truck, and Raptor liner this thing up. All right, we are all Raptor linered up. The texture is good. We just gotta hope that it dries to match the same color. That's my hope. I think it will. So this has got to dry up. The fender's got to dry up, and we'll come back tomorrow and throw everything together. All right, it's a new day and our fender looks fantastic. I'm really happy with how this came out. The paint booth improvements are definitely helping. We have very few little imperfections and dust nibs and stuff, and they're hardly noticeable. So that's fantastic. And with our new gun, you know, we got a really good finish. I think we could have done better on the primer. We definitely could have sanded our primer, and that would have gave us just a perfectly glassy, smooth finish with zero orange peel. But cars from factory have orange peel in them, and I think overall, like if you look at how we're bouncing these lights right here, I think that's a good amount right here. The surface this is a fiberglass fender from factory, so the surface right here is actually pretty rough just from the factory because they don't finish it out. There's no reason to because it's covered with molding. But if you look right here where it's actually, you know, car body, it's bouncing really good. It looks really good, and I'm very happy with how that turned out. So that's great. Now we just got to see if it's a color match. Normally I would spray out a color match test card, but on this, since we're facelifting the truck and we're redoing all this stuff anyways, I just figured we're just gonna run with whatever color it is. So let's get it outside and let's get it on the truck. It's finally back together. I think it looks really good. The color match is not dead straight. It's definitely it's more dull on the parts of the old car because this car I believe was in Texas. It's really accentuated down here. You can kind of see how it's just a little bit more dull over there. Overall though, I mean, it's exactly what I thought it was gonna be. I knew it wasn't gonna be 100% perfect. I did not want to spend the time and the money and the effort to worry about it. So I was just like, we'll paint it up. This is just our temporary front end until we do our facelift anyways. Then when we do our facelift, we're actually gonna blend the paint in. But with all that said, this looks fantastic. I'm so happy about this. The Raptor liner's good. I mean, we had to give everything a cleanup, so you can't see that it's on its way. It's drying up. It's getting closer to the color, but still, those parts are still a little bit more dark. But it went on good. The texture's good, and that all looks great too. I cannot wait to get this thing out on the road. We're gonna go get this thing registered, then we're gonna go get a trailer, and then we're gonna go get our SEMA build. That's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for watching. That is the build, but always when we finish a build, we gotta test it out. So we're going to do some off-road camping, nature, trying to jump. We're basically gonna go search for a jump and try and jump the Raptor. And of course, with every build, we gotta give you a cost breakdown. So those episodes are gonna be coming shortly. Also, Lambo's pretty much done with paint. That's gonna be good. So if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. You will not want to miss the build that we have coming up next. It's a one-in-the-world type of build. And also, if you're into trucks, I'm going to include a playlist at the end of this thing of how we rebuilt our FJ Cruiser. Check that playlist out. I think you'll enjoy it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you soon. Peace!